Hey everyone. So something pretty major is happening over in the United States right now, a full-on government shutdown. And you might be thinking, okay, but what does that have to do with us? Well, today we're going to break down exactly what this means for Thai interests, both back home and for folks living in the US. Let's jump right in. I mean, think about it for a second. What really happens when a country like the US just shuts down its government? It's a huge question, right? And the consequences, well, they definitely don't stop at the American border. When Washington, D.C. hits the brakes, those ripples travel thousands of miles, all the way to places like Thailand. So the big question for us is, just how deep do those ripples actually go? 22 days. Yep, as of right now, that's how long this shutdown has been going on. We're talking more than 3 weeks. So, this isn't just some brief hiccup, it's a serious stalemate. And the real-world consequences are piling up with every single passing day. Okay, so first things first. Let's do a quick primer on what's actually happening here. What is a government shutdown, and why is this even a thing? So at its core, this whole thing is a political standoff. You've got Republicans and Democrats who just can't agree on funding for healthcare subsidies, and when they can't agree on a budget, well, all the non-essential parts of the federal government have to shut down. Now, it's really important to get that this isn't a complete stop, but it's for sure a major, major disruption. And that disruption, it has a huge human cost. Just look at this number, 750,000. That's how many federal employees are caught in the middle of this. They're either being sent home without pay, or they're working without a clue when their next paycheck is going to show up. It really drives home the personal side of all this political fighting, doesn't it? Okay, so now let's bring it all back to Thailand. How exactly does a political fight happening in the US start to cause tremors in the Thai economy? Well, according to the Thai Ministry of Finance, we could be looking at a few headaches. Things like delayed orders for our key exports, electronics, industrial goods. We could see slower processing at customs and even clogged up ports, which could really mess with supply chains. And then there's the people side of it. With all those American federal workers not getting paid, we might see fewer tourists coming over, which means less spending. And on top of all that, you've got potential wobbles for the Thai baht. But it's not all doom and gloom. Not everyone sees this as a huge crisis. The Bank of Thailand, for example, is taking a more optimistic view. They're basically saying, hey, this probably won't drag on forever, and the impact should be pretty limited. A big reason for that is that a lot of the key government agencies are actually still running. And that optimism isn't just wishful thinking. It's backed up by history. If you look at the longest shutdown ever in the US, which was back in 2018, it only knocked a tiny, tiny fraction off the US GDP. We're talking just 0.02%. So yeah, the impact is real, but maybe, just maybe, it's not the catastrophe some might fear. All right, so let's zoom in a bit. We've talked about the big economic picture, but what about the personal stuff? What does this shutdown actually mean for Thai folks who are living and working in the US right now? I think for a lot of people, the number one question is going to be about immigration. And here, the news is mostly good. For the most part, immigration services and enforcement are running like normal. Now, there are a couple of small exceptions, like the Office of Detention Oversight is closed for now, which might affect a handful of cases, but overall, it's business as usual. Okay, so what about federal benefits? This is where things get a little more complicated. Social Security offices, they're open, but you might find some in-person services are limited. And things like food benefits, while the October payments went out, some states are already warning that future payments could get delayed if the shutdown keeps going. So even though the offices are technically open, that risk of a slowdown is definitely real. And finally, something simple but super important, the mail. Good news on this front, you can breathe easy. The US Postal Service is actually self-funded, which means it doesn't rely on Congress for its budget. So your mail, your packages, all of that is going to keep showing up just like normal. So when you put it all together, what's next? What does the future hold? And maybe more importantly for all of us, how can you actually prepare for all this uncertainty? Yeah, this chart pretty much says it all. Nobody really knows. Look at this. A full 40% of Americans think this thing could drag on for 3 more weeks, or maybe even longer. Only about 21% are optimistic it'll end soon. So there's just no clear answer here on when things will get back to normal. So what can you do? How can you get ready for this? Well, here are 4 really practical steps. First, if you can, try to have a little extra savings tucked away just in case. It can be a real buffer against delays. Second, if you're getting any kind of federal aid, you're going to want to monitor it really closely. Third, just be prepared for the possibility of delays with things like visas or immigration paperwork. And last but not least, stay informed. Check the official government websites. That's where you'll find the most up-to-date, reliable info. And all of this leaves us with one last really big question to think about. This is the second longest shutdown in U.S. history. It feels like these things are becoming a normal part of politics. And it makes you wonder, what's the real long-term cost of governing this way, by constantly going from crisis to crisis? Not just for the U.S., but for all of us around the world who rely on its stability. Something to think about. Thanks for joining me.